Exciting. Tillamook sports. Tillamook versus the East Side, Ontario. Today is November 11th, 12th. November 12th, 1988. Okay. Here come the rain. Here come the rain. Oh, look at it come. Oh. Put dampers on it. You notice our boys got off the field just in time. They're a little smarter, you know. Them boys
home team advantage. They knew when to go in.
Yeah, they know when to go in. Local. Yeah. Get a shot of the Tillamook crowd here. Welcome to Tillamook Sports.
Hailing out there.
Yeah, it's hell out there, right? Yeah. All right.
Ooh, man. I just got a bet. I gave 24 points.
24.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, let's romp and stomp and sock 'em. Knock the hell out.
That's quickly. But, you know, we've lived in it for a few years, so we don't have any, as far as going back on the camera, but we can, you know, it's a while, I don't know. But it should do our responsibility, you
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first round of the OSAA Class AA football playoffs between the Ontario Tigers and the Tillamook Peacemakers. The Tigers sitting second in the Greater Oregon League with an overall record of 5 wins, 4 losses. The Peacemakers sitting first in the Falls League with an overall record of 9 wins, 0 losses. Return your attention to the center of the field. We'll have the toss of the coin. Representing Tillamook, number 73, Tim Beach, and number 34, Jeff Pitch. Ontario has won the toss.
Sheila, you were right.
Ontario has the first to receive. Representing Ontario, number 4, Toby Johnson. And number 20, Dan Navarrete. The officials for today's game are out of Salem. Referee George Copeland. Umpire Larry Bright. Linesman Mark McLadry. Judge Steve Clark. Alternate Dick Lawson. Under the OSAA guidelines,
take that. How do you like it? Poor Steve, he always feels like he never does the do that. Do you want to? He wants to come down and go fishing. We can't go to school and go to work and go fishing.
to introduce the starting offensive lineup for Ontario. At center, number 66, Bob Parkhurst. At right guard, number 79, Jay Byrne.
I suppose if we
At
go
left guard,
somewhere, we'll be out
number
in the rain.
58,
Will be
David
here in
Britton.
Dallas.
At tackle, number 50, Johnny Gonzalez. The other tackle, number 69, John Chavez. At wide receiver, number 30.
At the tackles, it'll be John Chavez, 6'2", 250-pound junior, and Johnny Gonzalez, 5'9", 235-pound senior. At center will be Bob Parkhurst. He's 5'10", 165-pound senior. In the backfield, the Tigers at fullback have Dave Chapin. He's 5'6", 140-pound junior. At check that, that's at flanker. At the running back, it's Tim McBride, 5'8", 180-pound junior. And at fullback will be Travis Cron, 5'9", 190-pound junior. Also does the punting for the Tigers. And the quarterback for the Tigers, rangy, 6'4", 175-pound junior, Mark Ship. Outstanding squad of young men here from Ontario, coached by Ken Cron in his 10th year at Ontario, a graduate of Idaho State University. Now for the Tillamook High Cheesemakers. Starting at the end spots will be Steve Dutton, 6', 170-pound senior, and Mark Groshong, 6'2", 200-pound junior. The interior linemen at tackles will be Matt Groshong, 6'2", 230-pound junior, and Steve Bodine, 6'3", 210-pound senior. At guards, the Cheesemen have Tim Beach, 5'11", 215-pound senior, and Jim Anderson, 5'9", 180-pound senior. At center, Ken Coors, 5'10", 180 pounds, a senior. In the backfield, the Cheesemen have Jeff Fitch, a one running back, 5'10", 185-pound senior, and Doug Groshong, 5'11", 183-pound senior. At fullback, Matt Dixon, 5'9", 190 pounds, a senior. And at quarterback, the Cheesemakers have Joel Werner, who is 6 feet, 173-pound senior. Cheesemakers are coached by John Woodward, a graduate of Linfield College, and in his 12th year here at Tillamook. Well, that's about it for warm-up time, brought to you before each and every Cheesemaker football game by the Dairy Queen. Don't go away. We'll be back in 1 minute this afternoon, although we did have one rather generous little hail and rain shower during warm-up, and certainly not out of the threat of having that occur again. The winner of this afternoon's game plays the winner of the Dallas Glide game, which is going on right now, and that will be at either Dallas or Glide. This will be the only home game that Tillamook has in the playoffs this year, the way the OSA bracket is set up. And so if you're not out here, you need to be on your way right now to get one last look at the Tillamook High Cheesemakers for 1988. Joe Werner sets up the ball. The Cheesemakers will be kicking off to Ontario. Back deep, the Tigers will send Travis Cron and Tim Persifield. Persifield and Cron deep as Werner addresses the ball for the Cheesemakers, and we're just about ready to get underway as Werner hits it high and off to the right side. Ball is going to bounce and out of bounds. That's about the 20-yard line, so they'll mark it back 5 yards and try it again. Cheesemakers like to kick the ball off, not have the ball kicked straight down the middle of the field. And now the official checks with the captain of the Tigers to make sure. Dan Navarrete says, yeah, we'll take the penalty. So back to the 35-yard line. Joe Werner will set it up. Officials today, George Coupland, Larry Bright, Mark McGladry, and Steve Torek, with Dick Watson as the alternate out of the Salem Association. Werner sends it off to the right again, and again it goes out of bounds. And 5 yards back again, and at the 30-yard line, the Cheesemakers will kick it off.
It certainly is not typical of Joe Werner.
So 2 early penalties to move the ball back 10 yards. The Cheesemakers will kick off, giving Ontario ever better field position.
I wonder if the unstable ground condition is causing him to be just a little off his kicking game.
Or maybe not keeping his head down. No time off the clock yet. We've had a couple kickoffs go out of bounds, and we'll try again. Joe Werner addresses the ball. This one he sends straight down the middle of the field. It's going to be picked off back at the 23. Back over the 30, spun around 35, 40, and down at about the 41-yard line goes Tim Persifield. Persifield, the 5'9", 160-pound senior, returns the ball to good field position for Ontario. They'll start at their own 42-yard line. Cheesemakers on defense, clad in all black with white numerals. And Ontario, clad in their maroon trunks and helmets, white jerseys with maroon letters. Johnson split wide right, Ship at quarterback. Handoff, first man into the line, picks up maybe 2 as he goes to about the 43. As carrying the ball was Craig Easterly, 22. Oh, all right, Cron. All right, Cron carries into the line for a gain of 1. Make it second down and 9.
That was Tim Beach on the tackle.
New yard markers across the way for Tillamook, and they look sharp. Second down. Again, same spot, same result. In fact, even less, as no gain at all. Carrying the ball that time for Ontario again was Cron. It'll bring up 3rd and 9 for the Tigers.
Cron just barely got that ball under control. It was riding on his hip when he hit. I thought for a minute there that it would be a fumble.
And on 3rd down, the Tigers, who like to pass a lot, very likely will pass. They send Johnson wide right. And rolling back to pass. Cheesemakers have pressure on. Fire it out. It's complete out over the 45, 50, but it's going to be short of the first down as it goes just to midfield. The pass was completed to Tim McBride out of the backfield, a 5'8", 180-pound junior. And it'll bring up 4th and almost 2 for Ontario, just across midfield on the near hash mark.
Good pursuit by the defense, attacking the quarterback. He's going to have a little pressure on him this afternoon.
Whatever it is,
time of day is
it's going to be trouble not saying night, because of course that's where we normally play. 4th down and 2, and the Tigers bring in their punting formation as Mark Ship at quarterback goes back. Now, actually, Cron did the punting when we saw them earlier, so it's a possibility it's a low snap, but he gets it away. End over ender, Govers picks it off at the 25. Graves, 30, out to the right side, 35, on his feet and down, finally at about the 38-yard line. As Graves on a nice punt return, coming off the field now, looks like he's favoring his left leg just slightly. But it's a good return, and the Cheesemakers get the football in good field position. No score here with 9:43 remaining in the first quarter. Ontario and Tillamook. Last time the Tigers were here, they humiliated the Cheesemakers 35-0. First down, Cheeseman at their own 39-yard line. The wedge picks up about 2 or 3 as it goes to the 42-yard line, perhaps. Carrying was Dixon on that wedge, and the Cheesemakers want to test the strength of the Ontario line. The gain of 3, second down and 7 for Tillamook. Light rain falling right now, but the sun is shining as well.
It's predictable they try the left side now.
I formation. Going to the right again. Fitch caught from behind and dragged down right at the line of scrimmage. Defensive play put on by Dan Navaretti. And it's going to bring up a 3rd now and 7. For the Cheesemakers at their own 42-yard line.
So far, Ontario looks tough.
They are tough.
They've matched Tillamook head for head.
204-pound offensive line size on a power sweep coming to the left side. Fitch gets away from one man, but he won't get away from the others and is going to be dropped for a loss back at the 45. As covering quickly for Ontario was Gary Peterson, a 5'10", 165-pound junior. And it brings up a 4th down. They give him forward progress. It'll be 4th and 8 at the 41-yard line of Tillamook.
So they lost about a yard on that play.
And going back to receive the punt for Tigers is Tim Percifield. And to do the punting chores, Heitman for the Cheesemakers. He gets it away.
Good
nice punt. Driven back, fumbled back at about the 22, running laterally at the 25 to the sidelines, 27 down. Steve Dutton covers the play, and the Cheesemakers, good punt out of Eric Heitman. And Ontario comes back on offense at their own 20. Well, we'll see where they spot it. They're going to say it's about the 23-yard line.
It was not only a good punt, it was a good open field tackle by Steve Dutton, who set up well and made allowances for any kind of faking and put the tackle on.
Cheesemakers had excellent downfield coverage that time. Mark Shipp, that quarterback. 1st and 10, Tigers at their own 23. Sliding off to the left side, getting away from one man, but not Dutton. As Dutton puts the stop on Cron. No, let's check that. That's Tim McBride. And McBride picks up to the 20, about the 26-yard line. We'll say it's a 4-yard gain. 2nd down and 6. Perhaps the 27-yard line. 2nd and 6 Tigers. That was a power sweep to the left. Shipp back to pass. Has pressure from the weak side. Now gets it off. It's overthrown, incomplete. Again, going for Toby Johnson, the wide receiver, and Johnson trying to make his cut slip. He was, however, behind the Cheesemaker defenders, and that is a problem that Tillamook may have today, because Johnson is able to get out there and scoot, and the Mooks are going to have to give him a little cushion.
And that pass was about 45 yards in the air, a long pass.
Shipp can throw the ball, no question about it. 3rd and 6, Tigers at their own 27-yard line. No score between Tillamook and Ontario. Shipp rolling out of the pocket, going out to the side, now checks it off, intercepted. Mark Rochong has it at the 30, the 25, the 20, takes Shipp at the 10, and he's out of bounds. Mark Rochong took Shipp head up at the 10 and laid him flat. Went right over the top of him and finally was brought down at the 12, or at the 3, stepped out of bounds, but they never did put Mark Groshong down.
But Groshong was so open on that interception, it looked like he threw it right to him on purpose.
So the Cheesemakers get the first big break. They say he stepped out at the 5. It'll be 1st down Mooks at the Ontario 5.
What a change.
Power left side, Dixon behind the wedge. Close to the goal line. They say no yet. They say he's at the 1-yard line as the Cheesemakers power the wedge on the left side. Shipp was feeling the pressure from the Cheesemaker lineman and checked that pass off, and I don't know, you're right, Alan, I don't know where he was throwing it because it wasn't his receiver. 2nd and goal for the Cheesemakers from the 1. Power Dixon drives behind the wedge for the score. The Cheesemakers just blow the Tigers into the end zone and go out in front 6-0.
The left side of the offensive line is blowing that defense right out of there. It looks to me like possibly the defensive players on that left side are just standing up instead of staying low. And driving them back.
It's interesting that you say that. The Cheesemakers have picked up in their scouting the fact that they actually do things like that. So in the mud, Cini will set the ball for Joe Werner for the extra point. The snap, the placement, the kick. Cheesemakers lead 7-0. 6:02 remaining in the first quarter. We'll be back in a minute with more football over KTIL in Tillamook.
Chevrolet Oldsmobile and Cadillac Company, the #1 dealer at #1 Main Avenue in Tillamook.
The kickoff picked off at the 15, running laterally to the 20 on the right side now. Going to be in trouble down at about the 17 or 18-yard line. As covered there very well was that was Percifield. Percifield actually only gained about 2 yards. maybe 3 on that whole exchange, but he ran the full width of the field trying to get behind his blocking. So the Cheesemakers start the Tigers out right at their own 20-yard line. First and 10, Tillamook 7, Ontario nothing. First quarter, quick charge, and I think that may cost the Tigers because the Cheesemakers jumped.
Pulling.
They say it's against Tillamook. How can that be?
Pullen just reached out and touched the center.
After the left tackle of the Tigers moved, he reached out and touched the center. The left tackle flared out and went 5 yards downfield. 5-yard penalty against the Cheesemakers. That's their first penalty from scrimmage. They have 2 others on kickoffs. Tillamook 7, Ontario nothing. Ship at quarterback. Runs out of the pocket, but drilled in the backfield for a loss was Cron, and Mark Groshong was there. Well, Mark Dean would probably like to have been there too.
Got the coach out there.
And it'll bring up a second down and 7 on a 2-yard loss. Cheesemakers getting good penetration into the Tiger backfield.
They diagnosed that play perfectly.
5:03 remaining, first quarter. Tillamook 7, Ontario nothing.
They actually lost yardage on that play.
Second and 7. Ship hands off Cron into the middle. Nice run as he carries 3 Cheesemakers, Pullen, Dutton, and Groshong. And Matt, he carries them for almost 5 yards. It'll bring up third down and a long 2. That was the first real offensive daylight we've seen for Ontario so far. But Cron does have the power as he actually carried 3 of those fellows for almost 5 yards. Mark Ship on 3rd and 2 at quarterback. They're setting a pass going out on a quick pitch. Dutton is there to stop it. And it's going to be a 4th down as Steve Dutton, quick, sniping in, cutting the legs out of Travis Cron. And it's going to be a 4th and 3 for the Tigers.
Dutton went there as straight as a pin. He knew exactly what that play was going to be, and he got to the pitch-out man just about the time the ball got there.
4th down and 4 now, actually. And back to do the punting again will be Mark Ship.
Jim Sini deep to receive.
Ship gets a nice snap, gets it away, hangs it high. Sini's going to fumble it, and Cheesemakers got it over. Who got it?
I think Govers
has it. Sini fumbled it at the 45, and Govers alertly covered it at the 49, where the Cheesemakers will start over.
Sini's shirt is on sideways. He must have been hit fairly hard.
Well, after he fumbled the ball, the guy that went past him got a hold of his shirt or his arm and kept him away from the ball, and that was a good move. But fortunately, Govers was there to cover. Cheesemakers have it, first down at their own 49. Punt was good for 23 yards by Ship. Counterplay, nice hold. Doug Groshong into the line to the 45 of the Tigers, just across. A gain of 6, make it second down and 4 Cheesemakers. It appears that Dandy on the kickoff back to the 5-yard line, but Cron picks it up at that point, runs it back out over the 35 to the 37-yard line, where the Tigers will have a 1st and 10 at their own 37-yard line. A good return that time by Travis Cron.
Cron's a junior. He's the coach's son, and the coach is doubly proud of him as a father and as a coach. He's a good athlete.
He's an outstanding athlete, no question about that. First down, Ontario at their own 37. Handoff, second man, Cron going the right side, runs into Matt Groshong after getting a couple to about the 39-yard line, where it'll bring up a second down and 8.
That play was almost nullified by a quick move by the center of the line. They almost had the ball carrier in grasp, and he was able to get away for a little bit of gain.
Cheesemakers, the first quarter, carried 13 times for 57 yards, and Ontario carried the ball 6 times for 6 yards. Fumble, ball is loose. Who's got it?
They got it.
Ontario, there was a lot of arms and bodies going after it. And coming off the ball for Ontario was Tim McBride. And he saves it back at the 35-yard line as the ball slipped out on the exchange between the center and the quarterback Ship.
And there was another Tim out there just about to grab that ball. That was Ryan Tim.
And I'll tell you, there were black shirts all around it, but the Tigers come up with it. 3rd and 12 now for Ontario. An obvious passing situation. Ship runs back out of the pocket, pressured, gets it high and out of bounds over the far side. Pass was intended for Tim McBride, but again, Ship not having really a lot of time, although I have to say for Mark, he is very cool under pressure. As he released that ball, he was staring Matt Groshong right in the face, and yet he released it without flinching. Of course, maybe that's why it was about 18 inches high, but at any rate, it'll bring up a 4th down and 12 for the Tigers. The ball at their own 35-yard line. At this point, they have a -2 yards on this series. And Ship, Mark Ship back to do the punting, gets a nice snap, gets protection. A short kick, going to be taken by Cini at the 38. Coming to the near sidelines, 40. And a penalty flag flies as that could go against the Cheesemakers. Look like it might be a block. The official threw the flag, and it hit one of the Tigers right in the midsection, and he was busy trying to wipe it off of himself. He said, hey, it isn't me, guys. And I think it may be the Cheesemakers Beach who gets called on that one. All right, there's another flag back at the 25-yard line. Thanks, Van. We need you up here to spot for us more often. Presently, the ball is resting right at the Tillamook 40-yard line, but we have 2 flags down on the play, one at the kick, and I don't think that was a roughing the kicker since Mark Groshong was the only one back there, and he didn't even get to the punter.
Harold, I guess you were just saying we needed some Mo help up here.
Some Mo help. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Well, as we wait in the bright autumn afternoon sun here at Tillamook, after a night of fireworks and rain.
Really a disappointment for Neocani. They had 2 chances to win that game.
Tough break at Neocani last night as in the storm they gave up, they couldn't get their extra points, I guess was the difference, and lost 14-12 to Willamina.
Well, they were inside the 5 and bogged down with a fumble, and then they had a chance in the last play of the game to kick a field goal, and they have a fine field goal kicker. They could have done it, but the snap was high, and it went for nothing.
And now I don't know I understand that. If there was a procedure penalty against Ontario, why would Tillamook not take that penalty? No, it wouldn't be a first down. Procedure penalty wouldn't. Well, if you take the procedure penalty, the clip is nullified. Anyway, no, not automatic. Cheesemakers get it back on their own 25 at any rate. Well, maybe we'll get a better explanation of what was going on there. 10-13 remaining here in the first half. Tillamook leads 13-0. KTIL 1590 on your AM dial, bringing you this action from Doc Adams Field in Tillamook. Werner sends Doug Groshong in the motion near side. Werner hands off to Fitch. Fitch, nice hole, left side, gets out over the 30 to about the 32-yard line. Fitch brought down by Tim Persifield. Persifield has returned punts. He's been busy this afternoon. It's 2nd down and 3 for the Cheesemakers at their own 32.
There's only one way to describe this type of football, and that's power. Tillamook is playing power football.
Certainly is. And you do that as long as it works. Tigers actually a 7-man front. Big hole, Dixon up the middle. He takes Johnson head up, goes over the 40 to 41-yard line. He took Toby Johnson head up, but the fumble, they say, there's a fumble in there, and the Tigers get the football. At the 40-yard line, the Tigers have recovered a Cheesemaker fumble.
That's Dixon's first fumble of the year.
So the Tigers take over the football at the Cheesemaker 40-yard line. Their deepest penetration so far. And Dixon hit Toby Johnson and went over the top of him and then was pulled down about 2 yards further. But apparently as he went by, Toby must have got a hand on the football because he came up with the intercept, or with the recovered fumble. High formation, Tigers. Handoff, Cron dropped for no gain. And that was a play that was a little slow developing, and Mark Shipp almost didn't get to Cron to give him the handoff. And by the time he did, the Cheesemakers were covering it well. It'll bring up 2nd down and 10.
Tim Beach and Ryan Tim put their act together and brought him down.
2nd and 10 for the Tigers. Cheesemaker 40-yard line. 13-0. Tillamook leads with 8:45 remaining in the first half. AA high school football playoff action here in Tillamook this Saturday afternoon. Right side, couple maybe, as getting Tim McBride goes inside the 40 down to about the 36-yard line. Give him a gain of 4. Make it 3rd down and 6. I guess. Let's see where they set the football down. The yard marker over there hasn't got settled down yet.
Need to give Fitch the credit for that tackle.
3rd down and 6, Tigers at the Cheesemaker, 36. In motion to the right side goes Johnson. Danbury, rather. Back to pass. Shipp has some pressure. Intercepted, Mark Rochon. He could go all the way. He has only...
Oh,
he
no.
fumbles the ball.
Out of bounds.
I can't believe it. Mark Rochon intercepted another one. He had only Mark Shipp to beat, and as he rambled downfield at about the 35, he fumbled the football out of bounds.
But let's keep in mind that he's wearing gloves that are typical of defensive backs. They want to keep their hands so that they can handle a little punishment, and so it was hard for him to feel the ball with those gloves on.
I was really looking forward to the confrontation again between Mark and Shipp. Between the two marks. 1st down, Cheesemakers in a turnover bowl. Fitch going to the outside, gets a nice block, cuts inside at the 30, goes to the 25, and down to about the 23-yard line.
If I'm not mistaken, when Shipp saw Mark get the ball, I think he ran to the other side of the field.
Give Fitch 8 yards, 2nd down and 2, Cheesemakers at the 24.
That's called shipping out.
4th, the turnover of the ball game, I believe. 3rd turnover anyway. The ball is exchanged hands. Mark Groshong has 2 interceptions. Big hole up the middle, Dixon. Closed quickly, but Dixon gets inside the 20 to about the 18-yard line. That hole was immense up the middle that time.
Wide open hole.
So the Cheesemakers have another 1st down for the game. Randy said Dixon could have a big game today if all things work well, and he certainly is on the way.
Well, this defense from Ontario is the type of defense that is very vulnerable to a Dixon-type runner.
At the 18-yard line, Cheesemakers, 1st and 10. They lead 13-0. Dixon over the right side. Big hold. 10, 5. Nope, not quite to the 5. Give him to the 7. Inside the 10 to the 7, and it should be enough for a 1st down. 1st and goal to go for the Cheesemakers. At the 7-yard line, Cheesemakers hold a 13-0 lead. We have 6:45 remaining in the first half of play. George having trouble keeping. Handoff left side, Doug Rochon trying to find a hole, cut down by Travis Cron. Good defensive play by Travis Cron as he cut into the feet of Doug Rochon. And the gain will be to the 5-yard line, where it'll bring up 2nd and goal to go from the 5.
I noticed Aaron Grave is on the bench. He did come off the field limping that one play, and I haven't seen him back in the game since.
Tough break. Getting hurt started the first playoff game. 2nd and goal to go from the 5 for the Cheesemakers. Power right to Doug Rochon. Doug has slipped. He had some blocking in front of him, but the stop by Ontario was made by Darren Findling. and they're going to spot the ball at the 2-yard line.
Just
So
like,
bring up third goal to go from the 2.
it's like running a conversion.
Except we're not going to try and kick it this time. Dixon and Groshong, the setbacks. It goes to Dixon for the score. Dixon powers it in for his 3rd touchdown of the afternoon, and the Cheesemakers lead 19-0.
Once again over the left side.
And the Cheesemakers, Werner to kick the extra point as they...
I think they're going to go for 2, aren't they?
Well, I don't know. He got his toe already.
Looks
And
like they're
you're
going
right.
for 2.
They're going to go for 2. Cheesemakers are going to go for 2 here. They lead 19-0. In motion. Groshong to the right side. Back to pass. Werner flips it. Intercepted. Intercepted by Cron. And the score, Tillamook 19 and Ontario nothing. We'll be back in a minute with more football over KTIL in just a second. Tiger turnover and run it in for the score. They go 32 yards in 6 plays for that score. Mark Groshong has 2 interceptions. Dixon 3 touchdowns. The ball bounces, fumbled around by Percival. Now he gets it back. He's out over the 10, the 15, and then rolled back as he gets close to the 20. Ryan Tim on the stop for the Cheesemakers, and they're going to spot the ball across the... Well, we'll see where they set it down. They're going to find a nice muddy spot there, I would imagine.
On that kicking team, Pullen is usually the first one downfield. There's a reason for that. He's one of the fastest men in AA in the whole state of Oregon. It makes sense that he'd be the first one down the field.
Just across the 20-yard line, the Tigers start on this drive. They do not have a first down yet this afternoon. Cron going to the right side, and Beach has him by the shoestrings. Mark Groshong helps finish him up, and it'll be a loss, if anything.
Not that Beach needed any help.
No, he certainly didn't on that one. But Mark was there just to make sure.
He just kind of rubbed his face in it. And out here, rubbing your face in it means mud, folks.
It is now. It's starting to churn up in the middle of the field where the play has been.
Well, it's the last game of the season.
Tillamook has tried to spread out that activity. 2nd down and 11. Tigers slanting to the right side, getting away from one man, but not the second is Tim McBride, as he's brought down by Jim Sini. Jim Sini comes up with the stop on Tim McBride. After he gets a gain of 4, it'll be 3rd down and 7 now for the Tigers.
Fitch had him dead to right in the center of the line before he started to move laterally. In fact, maybe Fitch is the one that made him move laterally, but
he really wanted to come to this side, but
slipped out of Fitch's hands, and maybe mud had a little to do with that.
3:45 remaining, first half. Tillamook 19, Ontario nothing. Back to pass, Ship. He's running out of the pocket. He's being chased. Now checks, almost intercepted Sini. Almost. Sini had it as he stepped in front of Bob Peterson, a 6'4", 205-pound tight end junior. And the Cheesemakers again thwart the Tigers. The Tigers really like to throw the ball and have made as much of their yardage this year in the air as they have on the ground.
They're enjoying it less today, Harold.
And today they have not made a whole lot more on the ground than they've made in the air, and that hasn't been too much.
That was a desperation pass.
4th and 7 for the Tigers at their own 24-yard line as Ship to do the punting. Takes his time, gets it away. Hangs it high. Sini, fair catch at the Cheesemaker 46, and the Books will take over at that point. Nice move that time by Sini, who signaled very wide open, very well, that everyone could see fair catch, and then brought it in. So the Cheesemakers take over again at their own 46-yard line. They lead 19-0. We have 3.5 minutes to play in the first half over KTIL in Tillamook. That punt was good. The Ship has hit 32, 23, 40, and 30 in his 4 punts.
And there's no wind out here.
Dixon up the middle, gets about 4 as he moves almost to midfield to about the 49-yard line. They're going to set it back at the 49, give him a gain of 3 and make it 2nd and 7 for the Cheesemakers. 3:13 and running on the clock. The Cheesemakers, I'm sure, would like to pick up another score here before the halftime bell goes off. 19-0, Tillamook. Sun has been shining the entire ball game. I formation, in motion, coming to the near side pitch. Handoff goes to Doug Groshong. Penalty flag flies into the pile, and Doug is going to get a couple to about the 47 or 8-yard line of the Tigers, but a penalty flag behind the play will go probably against the Cheesemakers for holding. It does. On the backside, and so the play will be nullified, and the Cheesemakers will be facing 2nd and long. Up discussing the alternatives is Dan Navarrete, and he says, yeah, we'll take the 10 yards. Moves the ball back to the 41-yard line of the Cheesemakers, where it'll bring up 2nd down and 15. 2:45 remaining here in the first half. We're hoping to talk with Fred Berkey, head coach of the state champion Cheesemaker cross-country team. Quarterback draw. Werner up the middle, gets the block. Away from one man. He's out over the 45, 50, and back to the 48-yard line, where it's going to be a 3rd down and about 3, right back where we were before the penalty. So the Cheesemakers on a quarterback draw pick up, give him 3rd and 4.
Pretty good crowd response on that play.
Well, they thought that Ontario might have tried to hold Werner up and strip the ball away from him. I guess after you got his legs anchored and he pitches out and you go for 20 yards, they're going to try and do that to you. 1:50 in the half. Werner. Counterplay, a pitch in the middle, hooked up and down for a loss, or not a loss, but no gain. And it'll bring up 4th down as the stop was put on by Brad Kamek, a 6'1", 205-pound junior.
I don't see any point in punting.
And it'll be 4th down. And the Cheesemakers will go to the punt as Eric Heitman comes in to hit the ball for the Bucks. With 1:20. Heitman gets it away, end over ender. It bounces at the 20 inside to about the 18-yard line, and there Mark Groshong is to cover it as Percifield says, I'm staying away from it. And with 1:08, the Tigers get it back as the Cheesemakers put up their 2nd punt of the afternoon, this one for 29 yards. Heitman's first punt carried for 44 yards. And like Alan says, when there's no wind, a 44-yard punt last night would not have been too surprising.
Especially not with the wind.
Going one way, and even a 4-yard punt the other way was an effort. Mark Shipp as the Tigers go into a spread offense here with 54 seconds remaining. Hand off right side. What a shot.
Govers.
As Govers takes McBride, and I'll tell you, McBride knew he'd been hit.
Govers is a natural football player. He loves to hit. He's strong, he's quick, he's fast. Govers has all the qualifications for a defensive backfield player.
McBride picks up 9 on that carry, 2nd down and 1 for the Tigers. As the Tigers going into a spread offense, showing pass with 25 seconds remaining in the half. Fumble, and interesting, the ball came ahead. Tigers get the football as Shipp, I think, comes off the ball, and it may... Let's see, I guess it will now. I thought the ball moved ahead, but I guess it didn't. So it'll be 3rd down and a long yard for the Tigers. And that's the end of the half. With a score, Tillamook 19 and Ontario nothing. The Tigers are still to get a 1st down here in the ball game. The Cheesemakers 19-0 lead here at the halftime. We'll be back with...
Or choose the $10 do-it-yourself sign, which you can install on your house or fence post. For more information, contact the Tillamook Volunteer Fire Department at 842-7587. Why not get one installed for a loved one? Make it easier for your house to be seen.
Now at Paul Keene's Russell Chevrolet Oldsmobile and Cadillac Company, the word of the year is the year 1988. You'll save up to $4,000 on some 1988 demos. Save on the 88 Coronado Coupe. Save on the 88 Cutlass Sierra 4-door sedan or the 88 5-speed SDX pickup. Remember, when it comes to savings, the word of the year is the year itself. At Paul Keene's Russell Chevrolet Oldsmobile and Cadillac Company, the #1 dealer at #1 Main Avenue in Tillamook.
By pass and by penalty, Ontario has no penalty on the ball game. Tillamook penalized 5 times, 40 yards. Ontario gets the penalty. The only penalty they would be right on. And they'll be ready to kick off. The Cheesemakers will be receiving the second half kick. And we see Govers coming across the field with his jersey off, or Graves rather. And we assume he is walking though, and he's got both shoes on, but he doesn't have his pads on. So we assume that he does not intend to come back in here in the second half. He was injured on a punt return early in that, about midway through the first quarter. A tough break there for the Cheesemakers. He got 14 yards, by the way, on that punt return. An excellent job by the Cheesemaker senior.
No point at this point to put stress on Graves' injury with more playoff games remaining and with as many talented men on the sidelines as there are. Really would be an unwise move to try to play him with that injured foot.
The Cheesemakers will be receiving the kickoff from Ontario. As deep for the Cheesemakers, Doug Groshong, Paul Govers, and Jeff Fitch.
We haven't run a kickback all the way yet this season, have we?
No, we haven't. This would just be a good opportune time to do a thing like that. Or provided they go beyond today, next week would also be a good time. Fairly short kicks picked up at the 20 by Fitch. Back over the 25, steps around one man, 30, goes to about the 33-yard line before he's ridden down as the Cheesemakers just use straight-ahead power that time. No subterfuge or sideline picket blocking or anything. And Tillamook will take over the ball at their own 33-yard line, 1st and 10. They lead 13-0 over the Tigers of Ontario. KTIL, Tillamook, Oregon, 1590 in your AM dial, bringing you this action. Lots of action as tonight the Trailblazers and the Ducks will be on. This afternoon on the FM, of course, the Oregon State Beavers and the Washington State Cougars are on. And that should also be an interesting
an offensive
matchup.
battle.
It sure sounds like it. Play was stopped down in the field as
Equipment
looked
problem.
like one of the Tigers must have been without a mouthpiece. And now Navarrete is being waved off by the officials, and in his place comes Junior Guantero, I guess it is. So it'll be first down for the Cheesemakers at their own 33-yard line. Wide gap over the middle of the line. Joe Werner sends Fitch in motion over to the right side. Werner, handoff, second man, Doug Groshong, going to be caught for no gain or maybe even a loss. Good defensive play that time by Bob Peterson, who's been in a lot of stops, 6'4", 205-pound junior. I'll tell you, Ontario is going to be tough next year. They have a strong junior squad with just a sprinkling of seniors. They have some fine athletes, I'll tell you. A loss of a yard, second down and 11. Cheesemakers at the 32-yard line. I formation. Cheesemakers, second man through is Fitch, gets over the 35 to about the 36-yard line. As the Tigers coming out here are looking a little bit more fired up than they were. And Coach Ken Cron says, listen, fellas, if you don't want to get blown out of this thing entirely, you better suck it up. So with a third down and 7 call now, the Cheesemakers at their own 36 face a revitalized Tiger defense. Tigers showing a 6-man front. Stunning. Quick pass into Mark Groshong. Can't hang on to it.
That's a good call.
Quick look-in pass to Mark Groshong, and ball just slightly thrown behind his shoulder, and he bobbled it several times but never could come up with it. And the Cheesemakers will go back into punt formation as Eric Heitman, 5'11", 170-pound senior, will hit the ball. Penalty flag flies as the ball bounces at the 30 down to the 20 and inside almost to the 16-yard line where the Cheesemakers' Steve Bodine covers it. But a penalty flag thrown back at the 30 may indicate a holding.
I would think that if they had a choice, they'd like to have that punt over. That was a good punt.
48 yards on that punt. Procedure penalty against the Cheesemakers. And a procedure penalty can be almost anything. That is the Cheesemakers' 6th punt. They had 5 in the first half for 40 yards. But it's a 6th penalty. That's what I was looking at there. Oh, excuse me. Well, I was thinking penalty even though I did say punt.
It was only a 5-yard penalty.
So it'll bring up 4th. Well, but it also takes away an outstanding punt by Heitman. Single setback, Tim Persifield. Nice snap. Rush coming, but he gets it away. Nice spiral, but it's not going to be as long. Takes the Cheesemaker bounce to the 40 and inside to the 39, and there the Cheesemakers will down it. So quite a different result on that punt, as the penalty results in more than 5-yard difference in the
final outcome.
Final outcome, right. Actually, the ball was at the 16, and now it's at the 39. So a lot of difference in that. You might say that penalty was actually 23 yards. 10:07 remaining here in the third quarter. Tillamook 19 and Ontario nothing. Strong side right. Quick charge. That time they're going to have to call it on the Tigers, I think. And if they do, that'll be the first penalty of the afternoon for Ontario. That's exactly the same man that jumped last time, and the officials called it on Tillamook, saying that Pullen somehow was offside, but not a Cheesemaker moved. Only one man out of the 22 on the field moved. 1st and 15 now for the Tigers at their own 34-yard line. Hand off left side comes to Cron. Groshong is there to stop him.
Amazing.
One hand. Mark Groshong puts down Cron, Travis Cron. A loss of 5. Second rather, and 20.
I think the guys from Dallas down here in the stands have already decided they're not going to run a lot of plays around right in. Mark Groshong is invincible.
Well, at least he seemed that way today. He has 2 interceptions and a couple of halfback sacks. High formation. Tigers back to pass. Ship rolling, pressure, screen out to the left side, and it's incomplete. And I'll tell you, Mark and Matt Groshong were right in the middle of that screen.
Cron had no idea of catching that pass.
And
he was just going to let it go.
that pass been complete, it would have been interesting, I would say that.
Cron's a smart player.
So it's going to bring up a 3rd now and 20 for the Tigers at their own 29. They need to go to the Tiger 49. And I'll have to say at this point, it appears the difference in the two teams so far today has been in the front line. 4-man front for the Cheesemakers. Obvious passing situation. Ship back to pass. Gets pressure now, gets it away, but again it's incomplete as that pass was intended for Cron, and it'll bring up 4th and 20 for the Tigers.
Cron had Fitch riding on his tail.
Well, a lot of cheesemakers have given Cron Fitch today.
Oh, Harold. Okay,
Well,
we're even. We're
you got to come up with one of those now and then. 4th and 20 for the Tigers at their own 29. As Mark Ship will go back to do the punting for the Tigers. Sini is deep. Nice spiral. Sini's going to field it at the 45. Comes to the near sidelines, gets a block. 40, 50, fumble. Tigers have it. No, he stepped out of bounds. Oh, thank goodness he stepped out of bounds. Cheesemakers have it at the 46. But Sini coughed it up again, and the Tigers came up with it at the 42. So, but he stepped on the sidelines, fortunately. Now, if he'd have gone on to score, we'd have really been howling about him stepping out of bounds. As it was a blessing. First down, Cheesemakers at the Tiger 46. Actually, that's 3 yards short of where the Tigers needed to go for their first down. Handoff, Dixon, wedge, straight up the middle, goes to the 40-yard line. For a gain of 6, makes it 2nd down and 4. Matt Dixon in the first half had 12 carries, 57 yards.
The way Dixon protects that ball, it's amazing that he even fumbled. And that's only one fumble for the entire year. I guess we can give him that much. 2nd and 4, Cheesemakers at the Tiger 40. Dixon again, nice hole, gets close to the 35. We'll see where they mark the ball. They're not marking the ball up where the ball actually ends. They're marking the ball more at Dixon's thigh or belt line. Evidently.
And that'll be short of the first down. It'll bring up 3rd and a short yard for the Cheesemakers. Actually, where he got the ball to was first down territory.
Sure looked like it.
Third and short for the Cheesemakers. I formation. Werner. Dixon. No, Doug Rochon gets inside the 35, goes to the 32.
No doubt about that being a first
taking
down.
a shot at him, Darren Findling was trying to get him in the backfield, and about all he got was one arm of Doug Fitch, and Doug just kind of let that arm flip around as Doug goes for the first down at the Tiger 33-yard line. It's 19-0. Tillamook leads over Ontario. 7.5 minutes to go in the third quarter. Coming to the outside is Dixon. Takes one man, breaks out of the tackle. He's down at the 20, inside the 15 to the 13, and it took a saving tackle by Travis Cron to keep
Craig Easterly
a
is saying,
touchdown.
how in the world did that guy get
And
by me?
the official is warning Bob Peterson of the Tigers for blocking high, and they spot the ball at the 15. The ball was inside the 15. Now let's see what... nope, I guess not. So it'll be first down at the 15. Now penalty flags fly.
Too much time?
No, it must have been motion because everybody threw at the same time. And they move the ball back now to the 20, where it'll be first down and 15 for the Cheesemakers.
Well, the way Tillamook is moving the ball, I don't suppose that's any great problem.
First and 15 for the Cheesemakers. Tiger 20. Werner sets the offense. Dixon batters into the hole, gets a couple, and that hole was shut down better than most have been. Dan Navarrete in at Dixon's feet. And once Dixon was held up by his feet, then the rest of the Tigers came to put a shot on him. And it'll give the Cheesemakers a 2-yard gain, second down and 13 now. The ball at the Ontario 18-yard line. High formation. Werner rolls back to pass, fires it out, complete to Doug Groshong, but it's going to be a short gain. of only 4 yards as the ball moves to the 14-yard line. Where it'll bring up now 3rd down and 9 at the Tiger 14. We're under 6 minutes to play. 3rd quarter. Tillamook 19. Ontario nothing.
That pass play was set up to go deep, but the backs were covered, and he dropped it off to his escape valve.
Cheesemakers, 3rd and 9. Pitch in motion to the right side. Back to pass. Over the middle. It's interference is going to be called as pass was intended for Dutton, and over his back was Dan Navarrete, and that's going to be a 1st down, Cheesemakers. As the pass at the 8-yard line, interference was a call. Dutton was there. It was a nice little hook, and over Dutton's back came Navarrete to draw the interference call. Well, now, I believe it'll be a 1st down. It's half the distance to the goal line.
Pass interference is automatic 1st down, I think, isn't it?
1st down. 1st and goal to go for the Cheesemakers. The ball will be spotted at the 7.
They're right in the middle of a mud hole.
Well, we're used to playing in the mud. These kids have played in their mud now for 16, 17 years. Before he's rolled under by a host of Tiger players.
That pitch in motion, it was a little tap play. He tapped the quarterback on the hiney, and immediately the play started right at that point.
And now the officials call a timeout. Let's see what that's all about. Somebody's helmet is off there, trying to get it readjusted. Maybe that's one of those plays where the fellow was looking out of his ear hole and they had to turn his helmet back around. I don't know.
The pitiful thing was he didn't even know he was looking out his ear hole.
Oh, dear. Good crowd on hand here to see the Cheesemaker play off, and they lead 19-0. 3rd and goal from the 3. Dixon left side, touchdown. Dixon slams in from the left side, and the Cheesemakers put their 4th, and Dixon as well, their 4th touchdown of the day on the board.
Pretty impressive.
And the score runs to 25-0 as Tillamook leads over Ontario. And Werner will kick out of the mud.
Werner hasn't had his best kicking day of the year today.
Cini tries to flatten a spot in the mud. Wipes his hands clean. The snap, the placement, the kick. It's good. Cheesemakers 26. Ontario nothing. We'll be back in a minute with more football over KTIL in Tillamook. Werner sets a low sweeping kick. Bounces past man down back to the 5. He picks it up back to the 10. To the near sideline. 12 and out of bounds.
Ryan Tim put a hit on him. Didn't take any fakes, boy. Ryan Tim was right there.
Percifield has had a difficult day back at the kickoff return spot. He has returned to 28, 3 of 10, but the Cheesemakers with excellent field position start the Tigers off at their own 13-yard line.
Dancing kick. Hard to handle, and a lot of times it's off just short of the goal line.
1st down Tigers at their own 13. Marchkamp, their quarterback. Handoff straight up the middle. Nice hole this time out over the 15 to the 20-yard line. Hard running Johnson again. Wide receiver out to the left side. Fumble, scramble around in the backfield, and who's got it? Cheesemakers say they do.
And the referee says they do.
Beach has the football, and he holds it up as a trophy. All right, he says. Tim Beach comes away with a fumble, and the Cheesemakers again with excellent field position at the Tiger 21.
I wouldn't want to fight Beach for a loose ball.
So I noticed Ship was walking around there like he lost the contact. George says that's not funny. Coming to the near side is Dixon on a power sweep. Beautiful block, is moving inside the 20, close to the 15-yard line. Doug Groshong, or rather Matt Groshong, put a block on someone, one of the Tigers, and I think they almost put him into tomorrow. Getting up slowly there is Darren Findling. Easterly was the one that took the block. He got up a little better than Findlay did. So it'll bring up second down and 4 on a 6-yard gain as the Cheesemakers went on a power sweep to Dixon. And the Tigers apparently called timeout. One of the Tigers hurts or has Bud. What's the problem? One of the Tigers down on the field.
Who's that guy that got up in the shake there? Decided to lay down and get some help.
Darren Findling is being helped off the field now, and he's going off in his own power. But he took a hard shot. 1:05 remaining in the third quarter. Tillamook 26, Ontario nothing. Cheesemakers with the ball, second down and 4 at the 15-yard line of Ontario. Outside, Fitch gets away from one man, turns the corner at the 10, 5, and out of bounds at about the 3, I believe. Jeff Fitch was going for the corner, but he ran out of sidelines.
Nothing fancy about that. Just give Fitch the ball and let him run.
Again, over the left side, the Cheesemakers. Jeff Fitch this time carries over with great power. And the Mooks lead 32-0.
Well, we're almost to where we were on the other side of the coin the last 2 years ago.
Well, we still have a quarter to play. The extra point, high snap, the set, the kick. It's good. Cheesemakers 33. Tigers nothing. We'll be back in a minute with more football over KTIL in Tillamook.
At the corner of 3rd and Stillwell in Tillamook.
Presses the ball, bouncing, squibbing kick. It's going to be picked up at the 22. Back out to the 25, 32-yard line, and down goes Tim Persifield. Heitman on the stop for the Cheesemen. And Ontario will start this time at their own 32, a little better field position than they've had in this half. As the clock at 48 seconds showing in the third quarter is on hold, pending the start of the next play. Cheesemaker football is brought to you over KTIL 1590 your AM dial this afternoon. Made possible by a host of public-spirited sponsors here in Tillamook. Chip, quick pitch. Goes back to Cron on a power sweep. Cron gets away from one man, but down at about the 35, 34-yard line, where it'll bring up a second down and about 7. Give him a gain of 3. It's a short 3. The ball is short of the 35-yard line. We saw Ontario play Baker, and actually Ontario was leading Baker at halftime. That's the end of the third quarter with a score. Tillamook 33, Ontario nothing. We'll be back in a minute with more football over KTIL in Tillamook. 33-0. Cheesemakers lead starting the fourth quarter. High formation. Goes to Cron in the backfield. He's got to beat Mark Rochong. He does that, but Mark turns it in, and there is Jeff Fitch along with Doug Rochong to put the stop, and Ryan Tim is right there to help out as well. So the Cheesemakers cover that sweep very nicely, and it'll bring up third now and 6. So a 1-yard gain. Ball started right at the Tigers' 35-yard line. Tigers get on the board, and now will attempt the extra point. The score is 33-6.
Sweeney was actually covering 2 men and a little more committed to the one on the near side here, and it did leave the receiver wide open.
And the Tigers are going to go for 2 on the extra point conversion. Back to pass. Ship looking. In trouble down as Govers drills him. And the score is Tillamook 33 and Ontario 6. We'll be back in a minute with more football over KTIL in Tillamook.
24852 Michelin, because so much is riding on your tires.
Tigers go 64 yards in 9 plays as Chip hooks up with Johnson for a 47-yard touchdown. And that's the big play that the Tigers are capable of. The kickoff this time is Damon Hayes, and it's most likely to be an onside kick as Hayes kicks it off. And it's taken as Coors fields it perfectly. And the Cheesemakers hang on, and Coors got his helmet full of mud as about 8. Tigers do not seem to be showing the same enthusiasm that they did earlier in this half. They made a gallant comeback, but the Cheesemaker muscle up front has just been too much for them. First down, Cheesemakers. Werner, counter play. Cooley now slips to the outside, but runs into a host of Tigers at the 27-yard line and is rolled back
That's a good run by Cooley.
It was. He was in trouble all the way, actually. As he was hit. Now Werner comes out, and Mortimer is his quarterback. Mike Mortimer, a 5'9", 150-pound sophomore, will be quarterback for the Cheesemakers. Second down and 9. And off the inside, right to the middle line, rattles around and rolls back. He gets it up to the 50-yard line. So it'll be third down now and 8. And 10 from Varsity. We'll line up for the Cheesemakers, Gary Burke, Jeremy Ford. Move in their reserve unit pretty well. John Wexler breaks the huddle and goes over to the keeper, really to the outside. Penalty flag flies and ball goes inside the 20. And it could be
The trailer.
forward pass on that. As the flags went right in on the play, and they're going to discuss it with the Tigers.
The trailer got out in front of the quarterback, and when he pitched the ball out, evidently it was a forward pitch, and he was across the line of scrimmage when he did it.
So the Cheesemaker first unit will come back on again. It'll be fourth down now, and penalty puts the ball back to the 30-yard line, where it'll be fourth down and 11.
Now Jesse Arthur. This one's for real.
And let's see what the Cheesemakers come up with here.
Jesse's going to kick.
Jesse Arthur to do the kicking for the Cheesemakers. Hitting it for the corner, but it's going to carry to the end zone as it carries 5 yards deep. And roughing the kicker may be the call as the penalty flag dropped back at the 40. And if so, the Cheesemakers would get a first down.
That was a booming kick.
I do believe he did hit that nicely, didn't he? Jesse Arthur, a 6-foot, 155-pound sophomore. Procedure against the Cheesemakers is declined. So it'll be at the 20-yard line where Tigers will take over the ball as they decline the penalty and take the ball on the touchback. We have 4.5 minutes to play in the ball game. It's Tillamook 33, Ontario 6, and the Cheesemakers retain their perfect record of not giving up an extra point this year. They've given up 6 touchdowns, not an extra point. They're successfully to giving up 6 extra points and no touchdowns. Chip handoff to a new back that's in there, Corey Dimojima. Dimojima gets not, well, he might get a yard as they will spot it come out to the 21. It's a short yard. Makes it second down and 9 for the Tigers.
Mark Mortimer in at defensive back, along with Jesse Arthur. Govers, Cini, Fitch.
Second down and 9 for the Tigers at their own 21. Rolling back to pass. Getting some pressure. Getting it out there. Cini intercepts it. And this time Cini had the position on Joe Dunbrasky. And Dunbrasky couldn't get around Cini, and Jimmy picks it off at about the Cheesemakers 47-yard line.
Nice catch. It came over his shoulder. He ducked his head and pulled it in. It was well done play by him.
So a bit of retribution on that one as Cini pitched off the mark chip pass. And the Cheesemakers are right back in charge at their own 48-yard line. Clock running at 3:45. High formation, Cheesemakers. Mike Mortimer at quarterback. Fumble! And the Tigers say they have it. They do. Tigers have it as Mortimer never got it coming away from the center. And the Tigers come up with a football at the Cheesemaker 47-yard line. No, it's the 45-yard line, they say. And the Cheesemakers leaving second unit defense in for the most part. On a sweep going to the right side. There he was scoring Tillamook. Tillamook gets John Bailey. And he's the stop line. And right point. Whiteman.
works, they use local manpower and materials, and the Tillamook PUD job site is no exception. Best wishes to the Tillamook High School cheesemakers for continued success from Lonigan Construction. Go Cheesemakers!
Into the final 1 minute, 21 seconds. The Tigers, 4th and goal to go from the 8. Mark Ship for the Tigers needs to figure out how to get the ball in the end zone in one play.
He would suspect pass.
Ship rolling back, has some pressure, in trouble, and he's going to go down. Back at the 22 as Sullivan. Penalty flag now goes in on the pile. Sullivan on the sack.
And Whiteman was there.
But let's see what the penalty flag. Face mask cheesemakers. So that will give the Tigers, it will not give them a first down, but they will have 4th down from about the 4.5.
I think that was Whiteman that got his hand on that face mask.
Sullivan actually had him down, and the flag actually came in late. So with 1:14, the Tigers will have another chance at the goal line of the cheesemakers. Still 4th down, however. And they're making the last few moments of this game go too long. Cheesemakers now call timeout, but we have a shower about to descend on us. And until this time, the game was dry. And the Cheesemakers call timeout as Woodward takes a long walk out there, and Coach Ken Cron of the Tigers also comes out talking with Mark Ship. His charges, it'll be 4th down. Now Woodward is discussing with the official what the call is. I think Woodward was not very pleased. The actual call came from the back judge that was in the cheesemaker end zone. And I don't know what the reason the two officials that were covering the play didn't call it. But at any rate, Woodward gets his comments in, and the Tigers come to the line. 4th down. The ball is still spotted at the 9-yard line, however. Back to pass, throwing it out incomplete as getting excellent pressure on Ship. Joe Whiteman puts him down. He does, and I'll tell you, Ship gets up slowly. I'll tell you, Mark Ship is slow getting up. And the cheesemaker reserves hold the Tigers at the 9-yard line and take over on downs. Good stand defensively for the cheesemaker. And at the 9-yard line, the cheesemakers take over the ball at their own 9. Good defensive pressure. John Woodward is signaling that the face mask penalty, actually, he had a hold of his shoulder pads, not his face mask.
I agree. I was watching it in the binocs.
And a handoff straight up the middle, getting a couple, as carrying appeared to be Steve Bloom. Or he was leading the blocking. He was in the middle of the pile, it looked like. Gain of 1, make it 2nd down and 9.
Could have been Anderson.
Okay, it's probably Anderson, 45. All right. Brian Anderson. 2nd down and 9 for the cheesemakers. Clock runs. We're down to 38 ticks in this ball game. 33-9, or 33-6, the score. Tillamook leads. Mike Mortimer at quarterback. Handoff. Fakes the option. The wedge going over the right side gets out over the 15 and almost. Well, we'll see if it'll be short of the first down. It was Bloom on the carry, and so the last time likely was Bloom as well, huh? 3rd and 1 on an 8-yard carry as the clock ticks down, and that was the last play of the ball game. The Cheesemakers have won over Ontario 33-6 and continue on to quarterfinal action next week, either at Dallas or Glide. For the Cheesemakers win a big one here this afternoon over the Ontario Tigers. A convincing 33-6 score, and it's excitement time at Tillamook.
Here prior to the start of the ball game, and they've been going against the pass. That is kind of interesting, considering the fact that Dallas has relied so heavily upon the running game all year. I wonder if they anticipate that Dallas may come out and try to show some aerial game this afternoon.
Well, I don't know. They've run their offense the last few games. They're throwing a touchdown pass, I think, in the last 2 games Bill Christensen has, and maybe they're worried about the bomb or somebody getting behind them, but Dallas's offense is not a running or a passing offense. They run first, run second, and run third, John.
And they have the mat